I never expected my quiet Saturday morning to turn into the moment that changed everything in my life. My name is Ethan Campbell. I am 29 years old, and I work as a marketing specialist for a big tech company in Tampa, Florida. My life is simple, almost predictable. I wake up early, drive to work, sit through meetings, fix campaigns, and head home before the city gets too loud. In the evenings, I jog along the riverfront until my thoughts slow down. On weekends, I keep things even quieter. A coffee, a book, and time alone. No girlfriend, no drama. After a rough breakup 2 years ago, I learned how to be comfortable by myself. Or at least, I convinced myself I was. That Saturday morning, I decided to go to Clearwater Beach before it filled up with tourists. The sky was clear, the air smelled like salt, and the sand was almost empty. Just a few joggers and a couple walking their dog. I parked, grabbed my coffee and my book, and found a spot near the dunes, away from the main path. I laid out my towel, leaned back against a low wall, and opened my book. The waves moved in a steady rhythm, and for once, I felt like I did not need to be anywhere else. That is when I saw her. She was walking fast along the shoreline, like she was late for something or trying to get away. Tall, confident posture, but something was off. Her dark brown hair was tied back in a messy ponytail. She wore a plain white t-shirt and faded jeans rolled at the ankles. No makeup, no polish. She kept looking over her shoulder, scanning the beach. As she got closer, my stomach dropped. It was Vanessa Mitchell, my boss. She was the head of our marketing department, 42 years old, sharp, confident, and intimidating in the office. The kind of woman who could silence a room just by walking into it. I had only ever seen her in tailored suits, heels, and perfectly controlled expressions. But here she looked different. Pale, tense, almost scared. I thought about looking away, pretending I had not seen her. Running into your boss on the weekend is awkward enough, but before I could decide, I noticed a man further down the beach. Tall, dark jacket, his eyes locked on her. He called out her name, Vanessa. She flinched. Her steps quickened, and she changed direction, heading straight toward the dunes, straight toward me. Our eyes met, and for a split second she hesitated. Then she walked right up to me. "Ethan," she said, her voice low and tight. I stood up without thinking. "Vanessa, are you okay?" She leaned in close, so close I could hear her breathing. "Please help me," she whispered. "That's my ex. He won't leave me alone." Before I could say anything, she grabbed my hand. Her palm was cold, her grip shaking. "Pretend we're together." "Like we're on a date." I nodded. I did not think. I just acted. I pulled her down to sit beside me on the towel. About 50 feet away, the man stopped and pretended to check his phone, but his eyes never left us. The air felt heavy, thick with tension. Vanessa leaned closer. "He's been stalking me since we broke up 2 years ago," she whispered. "Texts, showing up places. I thought he'd stop." To make it look real, I wrapped an arm around her shoulders and pulled her in. "Just act normal," I murmured. "Talk about anything." So we did. We talked about the weather, about how calm the water looked. I showed her the book I was reading. She laughed softly and flipped a few pages, but her eyes kept drifting back to him. He paced slowly, not leaving, not coming closer either, just watching. Minutes passed, and the tension only grew. Then Vanessa shifted. Her leg brushed against mine, and she leaned in again. "He's still watching," she whispered. "We need to make this more convincing." Before I could react, she looked up at me and said quietly, "Stay still." Then she moved. Vanessa sat down on my lap, wrapping her arms around my neck like it was the most natural thing in the world. Like we were a real couple sharing a private moment. My heart slammed against my chest. I could feel the warmth of her, the weight of her trust. I forced myself to smile and placed my hands on her waist. "You okay?" I asked softly. She nodded, resting her head against my shoulder. "Thank you." I didn't know what else to do. Quote, "We stayed like that, talking about seagulls and tourists, about nothing and everything, while her ex watched from a distance. And in that moment, with my boss sitting in my lap and holding on to me like I was her anchor, I realized my quiet life was already gone. Vanessa stayed on my lap longer than I expected, longer than felt safe for my racing heart. Her arms were still around my neck, but her grip slowly loosened as her breathing steadied. I kept my gaze calm, my posture relaxed, even though every nerve in my body was alert. From the corner of my eye, I watched her ex. He stood there for another minute, pretending not to stare, then finally turned and walked toward the parking lot. Not fast, not defeated, just far enough to let us know he was not done. Vanessa let out a long breath she had clearly been holding. She did not move right away. "He's still here," she whispered. "I can feel it." "I see him," I said quietly, but he backed off, for now. Quote, she lifted her head and looked at me, really looked at me, like she was seeing me for the first time outside conference rooms and presentations. Her eyes were glassy but grateful. "I owe you an apology," she said, "and a huge thank you." "You don't owe me anything," I replied. "You were scared." "Anyone would be." She slid off my lap and sat beside me again, though her hand stayed linked with mine. The beach was filling up now, families spreading towels, kids running toward the water. Normal life continuing like nothing had happened. That contrast made everything feel heavier. "He follows me," she said softly. "Not every day, just enough to remind me he's there. I thought coming early would be safe." "That shouldn't be your burden alone," I said. She nodded, staring out at the water. "I didn't want it to bleed into work. I didn't want to look weak." I almost laughed at that word. Weak was the last thing I would ever use to describe her. Even now, shaken and vulnerable, there was strength in the way she held herself together. "I don't think anyone who survives something like that is weak," I said. She turned to me again, her expression softer this time. "You're different at the beach," she said. "Less quiet than you are at work." "I could say the same about you," I replied. "You're human here." She smiled faintly. "Don't tell anyone." We sat there a little longer, scanning the crowd. Her ex lingered near the parking lot, pacing like he was waiting for a mistake. Vanessa's fingers tightened around mine. "I can't just leave alone," she said. "If he thinks I am by myself, he'll follow me." "There's a coffee place on the boardwalk," I said after a moment. "Crowded, public. If we walk there together, it might send the message, you're not alone." She hesitated, then nodded. "Please don't let go." I didn't. We stood and walked, side by side toward the boardwalk, hands still linked. I felt his eyes on us the whole way. The cafe buzzed with noise and movement, the kind of place where trouble stands out. We ordered drinks and sat close, knees touching under the table. From the window, we could see the beach path clearly. Vanessa wrapped her hands around her cup, grounding herself. "I'm sorry I dragged you into this," she said. "You came here for peace." "I didn't lose it," I said. "It just changed shape." She laughed softly, the sound lighter than before. "You always talk like that?" "Only when I'm nervous," I admitted. That made her smile again, a real one this time. We talked about work at first, safe topics. A failed campaign, an intern disaster. Slowly, naturally, it shifted. She told me about the pressure of being in charge, the constant need to prove herself, the loneliness that came with authority. I told her about my breakup, how silence had started to feel safer than connection. "Funny," she said, stirring her coffee. "We both hide in plain sight." When we left the cafe, her ex was gone. Still, I insisted on walking her to her car. She didn't argue. "Can you drive me home?" she asked quietly, just to be safe. The drive was calm, almost intimate. Soft music on the radio, shared glances at stoplights. When we reached her condo, she sat for a moment before unbuckling her seatbelt. "Thank you," she said, "for today, for seeing me." She gave me her number before getting out of the car. That night, alone in my apartment, I could not stop replaying the way she had trusted me without hesitation. The way fear had stripped her down to something real. I knew then that this was not over. I just did not know how deep it would go. The next morning, I woke up to a message from Vanessa. "Everything's quiet so far. Just wanted to say thank you again." I stared at my phone longer than I should have. Then I replied, simple and careful. "I'm glad. Let me know if you need anything." That should have been the end of it, but it wasn't. The messages kept coming. At first, they were short check-ins. Then small jokes about work. Then late-night thoughts she admitted she couldn't say out loud to anyone else. Somewhere between sharing a meme and venting about a bad meeting, the line between boss and employee quietly faded. A few days later, she asked if I wanted to grab coffee after work, not as my boss, not as a favor, just as two people talking. That coffee turned into hours. She told me about the 5 years she spent with Jack, how it started intense and romantic, then slowly became controlling, how he checked her phone, questioned every late meeting, every male coworker, how ending it had been the hardest thing she ever did. I listened without interrupting, without trying to fix it. "You're good at this," she said. "Just listening." I shrugged. I've spent a lot of time being quiet. We started seeing each other more, walks, dinners, sitting on my couch, eating takeout and watching baseball games. No labels, no pressure, just space where she could breathe and I could feel needed again. She relaxed around me. Her shoulders dropped, her laughter came easier, but the shadow never fully left. One Friday night, a storm rolled in fast and loud. I was home alone when my phone rang. Vanessa's voice was shaking. "He's here," she whispered. "Outside my door. He's yelling, 'Please, Ethan.'" I didn't think. I grabbed my keys and drove through the rain like nothing else mattered. When I pulled up, Jack was pounding on her door, shouting her name. Rage and obsession mixed into something ugly. I stepped between them and told him to leave. When he didn't, I called the police. Something in my voice must have been enough, because he backed away, screaming threats as he left. Vanessa collapsed into my arms the moment the door opened. She cried against my chest, like she'd been holding it all in for years. I stayed the night, sitting on her couch while she talked through everything she'd been afraid to face. The next morning, she made a decision. She went to the police, filed reports, documented everything. I was proud of her. But strength has a price. By Monday, rumors were everywhere at work. Whispers in hallways, looks in meetings, people connecting dots they did not understand. Then HR called me in. They talked about boundaries, about perception, about how things looked. I left that office feeling smaller than I had in years. That night, Vanessa showed up at my apartment, soaked from the rain, holding food and determination. She didn't apologize. She didn't retreat. She took my hand and said, "I'm not running, and I won't ask you to either." In that moment, I knew, whatever this was, it was real, and real things are never easy. We sat together while the storm passed, choosing each other even when it was uncomfortable. Neither of us knew what came next, but we were no longer facing it alone. The days after that storm felt heavier, but clearer. Jack was served with a restraining order within the week. Vanessa had kept records for years, messages, call logs, photos, everything. Once it was all laid out, there was no denying the pattern. He fought it at first, left angry voicemails that only proved her point, then disappeared. Later, we heard he had moved out of state. Georgia, maybe, wherever it was, the silence he left behind felt unreal. For the first time in a long while, Vanessa slept through the night. It did not fix everything overnight. Some nights, she still jumped at sudden sounds. Sometimes she checked the parking lot twice before getting out of her car. Healing did not arrive like a switch being flipped. It came slowly, in small moments. Her shoulders relaxing, her laughter coming back without effort, her breathing steady when she rested her head on my chest. Work changed too. The rumors faded, replaced by something closer to respect. Vanessa addressed her situation honestly, without details, setting boundaries, reminding the team that life does not pause just because deadlines exist. People listened. And strangely, the same place that had once felt judgmental became quieter, more human. As for me, I changed. I stopped shrinking. I spoke up more, took risks, led projects instead of hiding behind them. Standing up for her had taught me how to stand up for myself. The quiet routine I once clung to no longer felt like safety. It felt like something I had outgrown. We did not announce anything. We did not rush. We just existed together. Dinners after work, long walks, lazy weekends cooking simple meals. Small habits formed without discussion. Her toothbrush by my sink. My favorite tea stocked in her kitchen. Nights where words were not necessary. One evening, we went back to the beach where it all began. The sun dipped low, painting the sky orange and gold. We stood barefoot in the sand, the waves brushing close. "Do you ever think about that day?" I asked. She smiled, squeezing my hand. "Every time I sit down." I laughed softly. "You changed my life." She shook her head. We changed each other. There were still challenges, doubts. Fear did not vanish just because love showed up. But we talked through everything. No walls, no pretending. I learned that love is not about saving someone or being saved. It is about staying, about choosing each other when it would be easier to walk away. That morning at the beach started with fear and ended with trust. And somehow, it turned into the safest place either of us had ever known.